Thank you, Hannes. Assalamualaikum and very good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the first of 5 special address sessions of the Hasanah Forum 2021. For this session, aptly entitled Peeling the Layers of Philanthropy, it is an honor for me to introduce our speaker, Dato Amirul Feisal Wan Zahir, Managing Director of Khazanah Nasional Berhad and Trustee for Yayasan Hasanah. Prior to his appointment with KNB on 16th July 2021, Dato Feisal was Maybank's Chief Finance Officer, where he was instrumental in the setting up of Maybank Heart at the Maybank Foundation back in 2016. Maybank Heart was established as a first-of-its-kind crowdfunding platform in Malaysia that ensures potential donors a guarantee that all their contributions go to the charity through NGOs without incurring any fees. Dato Feisal chaired the Maybank Heart Advisory Council, and through his leadership and guidance, Maybank Heart collected over RM3 million in 2020, majority of which goes towards causes that support beneficiaries impacted by the COVID-19 pandemic. Over the years, Dato Feisal has served in various management capacities at Citigroup Global Market, Salomon Smith Barney, Schroders, Binafication Berhad, and KPMG. Dato Feisal holds a Bachelor of Science in Economics, specializing in accounting and finance from the London School of Economics. He is a chartered banker, member of Malaysian Institute of Accountants, and fellow of the Institute of Chartered Accountants, England and Wales. And given his passion and expertise, it doesn't come as a surprise that Dato Feisal's research interest is in the field of finance. Ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, please join me in welcoming Dato Amirul Feisal Wan Zahir. Over to you, Dato.
Yang Berhormat Senator Tengku Datuk Seri Tharman Zafrul Tengku Abdul Aziz, Minister of Finance Malaysia and Board Member Khazanah Nasional, Yang Berbahagia Tan Sri Muhammad Nur Yusof, Chairman Yayasan Hasanah, Yang Berbahagia Dato Shahira Ahmad Bazari, Managing Director and Trustee Yayasan Hasanah, Yayasan Hasanah Board of Trustees, esteemed speakers of the Hasanah Forum, members of the media, ladies and gentlemen, welcome once again to the inaugural Hasanah Forum. And thanks to Noor Anwar for that kind introduction. It's an honor and a privilege to address you today, and this is my first address at Yayasan Hasanah as Managing Director of Khazanah Nasional. And what can I say by way of an introduction? Other than I follow in the distinguished footsteps of those who were in this position before me, and two of whom will address you later today. And most of what I talk about today, about Khazanah's role in philanthropy, of course, took place under their leadership. Now to start, let me tell you a story. The oldest recorded case of philanthropy dates from 15,000 years ago. The renowned anthropologist Margaret Mead was once asked what she considered to be the first sign of human civilization, and her answer was a surprise. It wasn't a tool, a pot, or a weapon, or a cave painting. It was a human bone dug up at an archaeological site, specifically a human femur, which is the longest bone in the body linking the hip to the knee. Now, this particular bone had been broken and healed, a process which would require 6 weeks of rest. And the meaning of this is actually quite profound. A human with a broken femur cannot survive without the help for the time it takes to heal. And unable to walk, he or she would die of thirst or starvation or even being eaten by an animal. A healed femur is evidence that someone else took care of this person for that time the bone took to heal. Someone helped and cared for another human being, and we can be sure that they weren't paid for it. Now, coming back to today, I'm going to talk about peeling the layers of philanthropy. So what exactly is philanthropy? And what does it mean? The word itself is derived from the Greek words philos, which means loving, and anthropos, which means humankind. Literally, philanthropy means love for humankind. What does it mean in practice? It means very much in the spirit of the caretaker of the human whose femur healed all those millennia ago, that we take care of one another. And that is our basic human nature. Fundamentally, we want to take care of one another, our family, our community, our nation, possibly even all of our fellow humanity, if our hearts and minds are open to it. And it is part of our shared evolutionary history that makes us human. But how might that translate to the corporate sector? What exactly is the place and depth of philanthropy in an organization which has the role of generating profit, making money as its primary objective? In the final analysis, no matter how much good we do, corporates are expected to make money, to have the total value of assets at the end of the year, which is a higher financial value than it did at the beginning of the year. And the CEO and management will always be judged on this KPI. How and where does philanthropy fit in with that? Now let's take a closer look by peeling back the layers. But peeling the layers of philanthropy can be a double-edged sword. It can reveal to us just how shallow and superficial our so-called commitment to CSR and social justice is, if there's nothing below the top layer. Or it can ensure that this commitment is in fact embedded throughout our organization and our activities. It permeates all the layers and reaches the very core of our existence. That will be the noble, ideal, aspirational state to which we aim, but possibly have not yet reached, or indeed may never reach. Now, one model, let's call this the first layer, which is very popular in American conservative circles, is that there is no need for socialized philanthropy at all. This is from the time of Ronald Reagan. The philosophy that pure free market capitalism, without cumbersome government interference, without troublesome restrictive regulations, combined with low taxation, enables the creation of wealth by smart, hardworking individuals, that some of this wealth reaches every layer of society through this trickle-down effect. Now, there are some problems with this system. It has become apparent over time that lack of regulation enables purely commercial entities to completely ignore certain categories of costs, environmental costs, social costs, and so on. And these come back with a vengeance to bite everyone, as well as our planet. And they are greatly magnified by having been evaded at source. For example, lending money to disadvantaged people at exploitative rates. And rather than helping them through a temporary difficult patch, this is more likely to condemn them to many negative social consequences. And when I was working in banking, it was abundantly clear that we had to take care of our customers, never exploit them financially. Also, the trickle-down benefits can only reach those individuals who are engaged in some form of commercial enterprise. It excludes those who are simply unable to work in a for-profit context, perhaps due to a disability or some other forms of social disadvantage. Now, this system also entails unconstrained profit growth every year, which means more consumption, more waste, more pollution. And nobody asked the Earth if she was okay with that. And she has been showing us recently, clearly and unambiguously, that she is not okay with it. Now, the next model, the second layer, is the pay and forget approach. Now, let me illustrate this with a pertinent real-life example. Imagine a child daycare center. There was a clear policy that children must be picked up by 4 p.m. But very often parents were late, so there had to be at least one teacher who was forced to wait for the parents to arrive. Now, a pair of economists devised a simple solution. Parents who are late must pay a fine. So they conducted a study on the impact of this policy, and the result was that the number of late pickups doubled, and the reason became clear. Before the fine was introduced, parents had the moral duty to collect their children on time. It was a matter of conscience not to keep the teacher waiting or prevent him from going home. Now, once there was a financial penalty, parents could relax. They treated the fine as a fee, and the consciences were clear. Now, this is actually a true story. As a company, we might do the same. We can treat CSR as a cost item. We can pay it to an outsourced service provider, so to speak. Now, the trouble with that system is that companies treat this like a fee, which then licenses them to carry on behaving badly. It's a line item which looks good in the financial statements, and there may even be some heartwarming pictures and sponsored activities in the annual report, but it is completely superficial. It's just a box that we have ticked and a fee we have paid. If we're peeling back layers, then we must expect underneath to find a core. What do we expect to find at the core? Now, the third model, or layer, is the one I'm going to focus on for the rest of this talk. The authentic approach, or the broken femur that healed approach, as our core. Authentic philanthropy should be embedded in our business and throughout our operations. And in the bigger picture view, even of pragmatism, it actually makes good business sense. Now, ladies and gentlemen, let's consider the authentic approach of society, firms, and government. Now, let's start with society. Humans are social animals, like ants and bees. Now, social animals achieve great things by working together, sharing information, and holding common objectives. Humans, ants, and bees all achieve marvelous feats of engineering, but only by working together. As humans, we are where we are. We have achieved what we have achieved because we've taken care of each other. And as I mentioned, the human who helped the one with a broken femur 15,000 years ago did not do it for money. They did it because we have this innate desire to help one another. authentic philanthropy comes down to human nature, just being human. Now, of course, COVID happened. The pandemic led to approximately 100 million more people being in poverty in 2020. Now, this represents a historically unprecedented increase in global poverty. The pandemic forced us to examine how we function as a society, not just globally, but also here in Malaysia. And in many ways, COVID changed us, how we travel, how we undertake our day-to-day activities, and much more. But it did not change the most important part of us, our natural instinct to take care of one another. No other situation in our national history has not only forced us to help one another, but also demonstrated clearly that it is our human nature. We want to take care of each other. The pandemic has demonstrated that in Malaysia, kita jaga kita is not just a phrase. It is who we are. All of society has pulled together, working with firms and government, and every available means, whether it's through social media, crowdfunding for donations, digital technology, has been used by people to help people. Volunteering schemes, food donation and distribution, flood relief assistance, the White Flag movement. There have been countless individual projects and initiatives. And what I have described is the authentic approach to philanthropy by our society. This is in complete harmony with our vision for a better Malaysia. And that means that everyone, regardless of social class, a socio-economic group or heritage, everyone feels that they do belong and that they're valued and treated with respect. And we as a nation care about everyone, and we're not leaving anyone behind. This is what the pandemic has shown us about ourselves. We should all be proud of our heritage, proud of our diversity, proud to be Malaysian. I now move from society to firms. Now, firms have a choice to leave behind the pay and forget model and to sincerely choose authentic philanthropy. As a firm, Khazanah fully embraces philanthropy in its broadest sense. This is reflected in our overall purpose, advancing Malaysia. The term advancing cannot be narrowly defined and measured. It must be all-encompassing. And it covers every dimension which defines a nation's well-being, prosperity, dependable and efficient infrastructure, social progress, economic advancement, quality of life, including healthcare and education, thriving academic, arts and cultural sectors, global credibility. Now, all that we do fits under the umbrella of advancing Malaysia. And thus, this is a very inclusive term, which enables all Malaysians to feel valued and appreciated. This is philanthropy. It certainly is not purely maximization of financial value. Now, since the 2004 refresh mandate over 15 years ago, Khazanah has progressed steadily in multiple dimensions of philanthropy: education, community development, environment, knowledge, arts, heritage, and culture. The individual initiatives are too numerous to mention, but of course include Yayasan Hasanah, founded in 2013 as an independent grant-making foundation, which has made enormous strides, as we all witness today. Yayasan Amir, founded in 2010 as a public-private partnership with the Ministry of Education, by which selected public schools in underserved communities are given a focused support to significantly improve the quality of education. The Khazanah Research Institute, founded in 2014 to carry out leading-edge independent research on critical issues and to support fact-based policies and decision-making. Think City, founded in 2009 and conducting world-class projects in healthy, sustainable urban living. It began in Georgetown and is now doing amazing work in cities all over Malaysia. Teach for Malaysia, Khazanah incubated this program to proactively address the issue of unequal access to quality education, enabling high-caliber individuals proudly to engage in a form of national service in full cooperation with the government. Yayasan Khazanah provides an educational scholarship to enable talented young people to study subjects critical to the development of Malaysia. And Taman Tugu, a beautiful urban rainforest park reminding us of the vital importance of nature to our planet and of Malaysia's natural heritage. Now, these are just a few examples from Khazanah's long and comprehensive philanthropy journey. And these are not mere pay and forget line items. They are authentic. Each of them plays a significant role in advancing Malaysia, and each in its own domain. And we're proud of our nation and truly authentic in what we do. And now I move on to the government. If society takes care of each other, because it ultimately comes from a long evolved sense of altruism towards one another, and if firms practice philanthropy because it's part of their purpose, then what can we say about an entity, the government, whose number one responsibility and priority is to take care of its people? In a democracy where we elect a government that represents us, we charge them with the task of, first and foremost, taking care of us. And as such, when it comes to government, we can't say that governments should practice philanthropy in a charitable sense. So it's less about philanthropy and more about authenticity. Fundamentally, people want the government to do its job. But what is that job? Of all the actors in a nation, the government clearly has the most enormous role of them all. Anything from building capability and capacity amongst its people, to ensuring access to all public services for all members of society, to providing food and any other such aid when the time calls for it, to organizing large-scale public health and public safety movements. For instance, the various MCOs and SOPs and the vaccination program could only have been executed by the government as part of a coherent national strategy, which no other entity is equipped, qualified, or even entitled to undertake. And to be fair to governments globally, and to the Malaysian government as well, during the COVID pandemic, they made Herculean efforts to protect society. Globally, governments imposed lockdowns and movement restrictions for our own safety and made an enormous amount of varying economic assistance to businesses, employers, and employees to sustain us during this period. In Malaysia, there were, of course, the various adapting movement control orders. And economic assistance was broad and multifaceted, including the economic stimulus package, that's worth 20 billion. The Prihatin package, worth 230 billion. The additional Prihatin package, worth 10 billion. The National Economic Recovery Plan, worth 35 billion. and the Kita Prihatin package were 10 billion. And to help employers, wage subsidies were issued to employees within certain parameters. And other relaxations were implemented to reduce employers' costs. And through various agencies, support was also extended to SMEs and companies affected by the pandemic. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I know we're at a forum organized by Yayasan Hasanah, Khazanah Philanthropic Foundation, but it would be remiss as well for me to pretend that even authentic philanthropy is flawless. Let me give you two thoughts of potential pitfalls. First, besides corporate foundations, there are also a good number of enormously wealthy private foundations with well-known brand names like Gates, Ford, Rockefeller, Getty, Kellogg, amongst others. They've got billions and billions of dollars in their control and are doing good across the globe in the areas that they care about. Now, for work that impacts millions and possibly billions of lives globally, this is something for us to think about. Should such societal value, good though it may be directed and managed by a group of unelected individuals, or at the extreme, one individual? And if something goes wrong, to whom will they be held accountable? Governments may be elected out of power, but if a foundation slips up, will the mega billionaire who founded the foundation be fired? Another thing. Earlier I mentioned pay and forget approach to philanthropy. Given that so many foundations in Malaysia and around the world are doing so much good work to help our fellow community members, there is always the moral hazard of too much dependency on philanthropy by governments. As I mentioned, for the government, philanthropy, taking care of each other, is not charity. It is literally their role. And it would be more powerful and impactful to find ways which governments can work closely with corporate and private foundations in complementary ways to extend its reach. Now, clearly, in this manner, philanthropy can be part of an overall solution. Ladies and gentlemen, this leads us to a logical conclusion. In a perfect world, if governments were perfect at doing the jobs, would philanthropy as we know it today still be necessary? Shouldn't we work to make philanthropy obsolete, or at least focus on individuals who fall through the cracks? Now, if we interpret philanthropy as charity, then perhaps, yes. In a perfect world, everyone would be safe, secure, and prosperous, and charity would no longer be necessary. But the philanthropy I have been talking about is much broader than mere charity. It is a structural and integrated system of distributing business-generated wealth within society to entities which are not themselves for profit, but which are vital and essential part of a healthy, culturally vibrant, economically just, and a rich, in the broadest sense, society. And I'm proud that Khazanah has and will always play an active role in that kind of philanthropy. Ultimately, authentic philanthropy all comes down to human nature. We're all just trying to make our way in a challenging world. As Malaysians, perhaps as global citizens, and we have a fundamental instinct to help each other. And we know we cannot do this in silos. We need to work together to create better communities, a better Malaysia, and if we can, a better world. Thank you.